Maybe place one hand on your belly, one hand on your chest, and notice the natural rhythm of your breath. Take notice of the quality of your breath. Is it silky and smooth? Is it a little choppy? Just focus in on trying to extend your inhales just slightly longer. Maybe pausing at the top before your exhale. Feel your ribs expand, your lungs expand on your inhale. And the hollowing out of your belly on each exhale. Take a moment to recognize anything that you're bringing into class with you today, maybe a certain feeling. Just set the intention to be present in the moment. When your mind starts to wander in class today, just bring your focus back to your breath and try to remain present. On your next inhale, extend your arms overhead. Reach out through your toes and your fingers. Start to waken up the body with a big morning stretch. Maybe wiggle your fingers and toes. And hug your knees into your chest. Maybe rock side to side. Maybe stay in stillness in the middle. Extend your feet overhead, heels towards the ceiling. Just start to point and flex your toes. And start to circle your ankles in one direction. And then go ahead and flip your direction. And come back to stillness. Cross your right leg over your left, hooking your right thigh over your left thigh, and then hug both knees into your chest. Hands can reach for the left shin. Your left arm is going to come under your right leg. And just focus in here. You should feel a nice stretch in your outer right hip. Stay here for 3 more deep breaths. And release that. Extend both feet towards the ceiling. Cross your left leg over your right, and then go ahead and hug your legs in towards your chest. Your hands can clasp the outside of your right shin. Soften into the stretch in your outer left hip. We're here for 3 more deep breaths. Extend both feet towards the ceiling. Go ahead and grab behind your right hamstring and lower your left leg down to the mat. Hug your right leg in towards your chest. Soften in, feel the stretch in your right hamstring. Stay here for 3 more cycles of breath. And go ahead and hug both knees into your chest. Extend both feet overhead. Reach behind your left hamstring. Lower your right leg down. Hug your left leg in towards your body. Soften in, feel the stretch in your left hamstring. If this is too much, you do have the option to bend your right knee and place your right foot on the mat. If you'd like to go a little further, you also can grab your calf instead of your hamstring. And release, hug both knees into your chest. Go ahead and rock side to side if that feels good. And make your way up to a seated position. Extend both legs out in front of you for staff pose. Ground down through your sit bones. Hug your right knee in towards your chest. And step your right foot over your left leg, bringing it to the outside edge of your left thigh. Bring your left arm around your right leg and bring your right hand behind you. Gaze over your right shoulder, come into a twist. On your inhale, grow nice and tall through the crown of your head. And on each exhale, twist a little deeper. We're here for 3 more cycles of breath. And release, come back to center. Extend your right leg out long. Bring your left knee in towards your chest. Place your left foot on the outside edge of your right thigh. Hug your right arm around your left leg. Bring your left arm behind you. Gaze over your left shoulder. Come into a twist. On each inhale, sit up nice and tall. And on each exhale, try to twist a little deeper. We're here for 3 more cycles of breath. Go ahead and start to come back to center. Extend your legs out wide. Remember to keep your sits bones grounded. You can inhale, reach your arms overhead. Exhale, bow forward. If you'd like a little bit of a deeper stretch, you can go ahead and walk your hands out further. And if this is too much, just go ahead and walk your hands back in towards your body. Remember to breathe here. Stay with me for 2 more cycles of breath. And start to walk your hands back up. Sit up nice and tall. Go ahead and bring the soles of your feet together. Knees can go out wide. Bring your hands to your ankles. Sit up nice and tall. Take a deep breath in. And exhale, fold forward. Stay here for 3 more deep breaths. And sit up nice and tall. Come over to tabletop. Make sure your wrists are in line with your shoulders, knees are in line with your hips. Ground down through your hands. And slowly with your breath, start to take a few cat-cows. Bringing your belly button to your spine. And dropping your heart low, inhaling. And exhale, come into cat. Go ahead and do this a few times with your breath. And come back to neutral spine. We're going to do a C curve with our body here. So on each inhale, you're going to come back to center. And on exhale, you can tighten your core and gaze over your right hip and shoulder. And then come back to center. And gaze over your left shoulder, come back to center. You should be squeezing in when you look over your right shoulder and your left. Go ahead and take 2 more on each side. And come back to stillness at center. Slowly rise back all the way up to your knees. Extend your right leg out to the side. Toes can be pointing towards the long side of your mat or the short side of your mat, totally up to you. Slowly start to walk your right hand down your thigh. Your left arm can stay on your hip or extend overhead. Feel the stretch in your left side body. Stay here for 3 more deep breaths. Bring your left hand down to your hip, slowly rise up. Bend your right knee, bring it back down. Extend your left leg out to the side. Toes can be pointing towards the long side of the mat or the short. Totally up to you. Walk your left hand down your leg. Right hand can stay on your hip or extend overhead. Gaze is up towards the ceiling or straight out in front of you. You should feel a stretch in your right side body. Stay here for 2 more deep breaths. Bring your right hand down to your hip. Slowly rise back up. Bend your left knee. Come back to tabletop. Place your right hand down on the mat. Left knee grounds down. Kickstand your left foot behind you. Extend your right or your left arm overhead. We're going to come into side plank. You have the option to stay here. You can extend or lift your left leg, or you can come into the full variation of side plank. Stay with me for 3 more deep breaths. Place your left hand back down on the mat. Bring your knees back down to the mat. And go ahead and set up for side plank on the left side. You have 3 options, or you can do something else if you like something else. Go ahead and set up. Remember to ground down through your left hand. Tighten through the core. Lift up through your hips. Stay here for 3 more deep breaths. Bring your right hand back down to the mat, knees back down to the mat. Bring your knees out wide, big toes together. Sink your hips back, arms out front. Head can come to the mat, come into child's pose. Take a few slow, deep breaths here. And rise back up to tabletop. Place your right foot between your hands. If you have blocks, you can use them here. If you don't worry about it. Or if you're more comfortable in doing this pose without it, you can try if you want with it and without. I'll demonstrate with blocks in case you want them, but go ahead and feel free to do your own thing without them. We're gonna wiggle our foot forward, our right foot forward, and just slowly sink back, bring your hips back, come into a runner stretch. Try to square your hips. You should feel a stretch in your right hamstring. Stay here for 2 more deep breaths. Start to bring your right foot down to the mat, bend into your right knee. If you need to, you can heel toe your foot back a little bit. Bring your hands to your hips. Extend your arms overhead. Come into crescent lunge. Tighten through your core. Shoulders are away from your ears. Stay here for 2 more deep breaths. And bring your hands back down to frame your front foot. If you have blocks, you can move them away. Bring your left hand down to the mat, right hand to your hip, or extend your right arm overhead. Twisting open to the right side. Stay here for 3 more deep breaths. Bring your right hand back down to the mat and bring your right knee back down to meet your left. Come back into tabletop. Bring your left foot between your hands. Go ahead and heel toe your foot a little forward. Lift your left toes off the mat, sink your hips back, come into runner stretch. Soften in, try to square your hips. Bow over your left leg. We're here for 3 more deep breaths. Start to bring your left foot down towards the mat. Bend into the front knee. Bring your hands to your hips, rise up. Extend your arms overhead, shoulders away from the ears, come into crescent lunge. Find your stability here. Tighten your core. Stay here for 2 more deep breaths. Bring your hands back down to frame your front foot. Keep your right hand on the mat. Bring your left hand to your hip or extend your left arm overhead. Twist open to the left side. Stay here for 3 more deep breaths. Bring your left hand back down to frame your front foot and bring your left knee back down to meet your right. Come back to tabletop. Ground down through your hands, tuck your back toes. Slowly start to lift your knees off the mat and push back to down dog. Go ahead and pedal your feet. Maybe come up onto the balls of your feet, your toes, and then try to sink your heels a little deeper down towards the mat. Remember to squeeze your shoulder blades together, hug your elbows in. Extend your right leg high in the air. Exhale, thread it through for low lunge. Ground down through your feet. Find your stability and slowly rise up to high lunge. Extend your arms overhead. Hug in through the midline, tighten your core. Remember to breathe. Anchor your left foot down. Slowly start to rotate open, come into warrior 2. Remember to track your knee towards your little toe on the right side. Keep your arms straight out in the T. Hug your shoulder blades together. Flip your front palm. Bring your arm overhead, reverse your warrior. Your left hand comes down your back leg. Gaze over your right fingers. Feel the stretch in your right side body. And slowly come back to warrior two. Windmill your hands back down to frame your front foot. Spin off your back heel and step back to down dog. Extend your left leg high in the air. Exhale, thread it through for low lunge. Find your stability, grounding down through your feet. Slowly rise up to high lunge. Bring your arms overhead. Spine nice and tall. Stay here for 3 more deep breaths. Anchor your right foot down. Slowly settle into warrior two. Flip your front palm, reverse your warrior. Slowly rise back up to warrior two. Windmill your hands back down to frame your front foot, spin off your back heel, and step back to down dog. Walk your feet to your hands, hands to your feet. Come into forward fold. Inhale, hands to shin, spine long, halfway lift. Exhale, fold forward. Inhale, reach your arms overhead. Exhale, bring your hands to heart center. Bring your right knee in towards your chest and cross your right ankle over your left knee. Sink down, come into standing figure four. Sink your hips back. Find a focal point to try to keep your balance. We're here for 3 more deep breaths. Hands are at heart center. And slowly rise up. Bring your right foot back down to the mat. Bring your left knee into your chest. Cross your left ankle over your right knee and slowly sink down into figure four. Find a point to focus on. Sink through your hips. Ground down through your right foot. Find stability. We're here for 3 more deep breaths. Slowly start to rise up. Bring your left hand foot down to the mat. Inhale, reach your arms overhead. Exhale, swan dive forward. Inhale, hands to shin, spine long. Exhale, step your right foot back. Come into low lunge. Bring your hands to your hips, slowly rise up, come into high lunge. Arms can extend overhead, shoulders away from the ears. Stay here for 3 more deep breaths. Anchor your right foot down, come into warrior two. Bend your left elbow, bring your left elbow to your left thigh, extend your right arm overhead, come into extended side angle. You have the option to stay here or drop your left hand to the mat or take a bind. We're here for 5 deep breaths. Ground down through that front heel. And slowly rise back up to warrior two. Windmill your hands back down to frame your front foot. Spin off your back heel. Ground down through your left foot. Slowly start to hinge forward. Kick your right leg up towards the ceiling. We're coming into standing split. Remember to breathe here. We're here for 3 more deep breaths. Toes should be facing down towards the mat on your right foot. And slowly lower your right foot down to meet your left. Bow forward. Inhale, bring hands to shins, spine long, halfway lift. Exhale, fold forward. Inhale, extend your arms overhead. Exhale, bring your hands to heart center. Inhale, reach your arms overhead. Exhale, swan dive forward. Inhale, hands to shins, spine long, halfway lift. Exhale, fold forward and step your left foot back, come into low lunge. Ground down through your feet, bring your hands to your hips, slowly rise up to high lunge. Extend your arms overhead. Find your stability here. We're here for 2 more deep breaths. Anchor your left foot down. Come into warrior two. Shoulders are away from the ears. Gaze is over your front fingers. Flip your front palm. Reverse your warrior. And rise back up to warrior two. Bend your right elbow. Bring your right elbow to your right thigh. Extend your left arm overhead. You have the option to stay here or drop your right hand down to the mat or take a bind. It's your practice, so you do what serves you. We're here for 5 deep breaths. Remember to keep your weight in your right heel. Slowly rise back up to warrior two. Bring your hands back down to frame your front foot, spin off your back heel. Ground down through your right foot. Slowly start to kick your left foot towards the ceiling. Come into standing split, second side. Toes should be facing down towards the ground. Remember to breathe here. Stay with me for 3 more cycles of breath. Slowly start to lower your left foot down to meet your right and bow forward. Inhale, hands to shins, spine long, halfway lift. Exhale, fold forward. Inhale, circle sweep arms to sky. Exhale, bring your hands to heart center. Inhale, reach your arms overhead. Exhale, swan dive forward. Inhale, hands to shin, spine long, halfway lift. Exhale, fold forward. Inhale, circle sweep arms to sky. Exhale, bring your hands to heart center. Slowly start to wiggle your feet towards the edges of your mat, bringing your heels towards each other, toes out wide. And you can slowly start to sink down. We're coming into Malasana squat, or yogi squat. You can go ahead and bring your elbows to your knees. If this is too much for you, you can back off and just stay here in like a squat position. You could also put a blanket underneath your heels. We're here for 3 more deep breaths. Bring your hands to the mat. Slowly bring your hips up, heel toes, your feet together, and come into forward fold. Inhale, hands to shin, spine long, halfway lift. Exhale, fold forward. Step back to down dog. Push forward to plank. Stay here for 5 deep breaths. Tighten through the core, tighten your glutes, tighten your hamstrings. Find your strength here. And slow and with control, lower all the way down to the mat. You can untuck your toes, bring the tops of your feet down on the mat. You can release your hands if you need to. We're going to come into you can either do this with one leg at a time, or you can do both feet at the time. We're going to come into bow pose. So you can either just grab your left foot with your left hand and stretch one at a time, or you can bring both of your hands to the outside edges of your feet, push through the tops of your feet into your palms of your hands, peel your heart off the mat, and we're going to stay here for 3 more deep breaths. So if you're just doing one side, go ahead and switch now. Squeeze through your shoulders and release that lower all the way down to the mat. You can stack your arms on top of each other, rest your head on your hands. Just take a moment here. Go ahead and bring your hands under your shoulders, tuck your toes, step and push back to down dog. Extend your right leg high in the air. Exhale, thread it through for low lunge. Bring your hands to your hips, rise up to high lunge. Extend your arms overhead, shoulders away from your ears. Anchor your left heel down towards the mat, come into warrior 2. Flip your front palm, reverse your warrior. Slowly rise back up to warrior 2. Start to straighten your front leg. Hinge at your hips and bring your right hand down to your shin or the mat or a block if you have one. Gaze up towards your right fingers, left fingers, right hand's on the mat. Left hand is overhead. We're here for 3 more deep breaths. Slowly start to bend your right knee, ground down through your soles of your feet, and slowly start to rise back up to warrior 2. Windmill your hands back down to frame your front foot. Spin off your back heel. Step back to down dog. Extend your left leg high in the air. Exhale, thread it through for a low lunge. Bring your hands to your hips, slowly rise up to high lunge. Extend your arms overhead. Spin your right heel down. Come into warrior two. Flip your front palm. Reverse your warrior. Slowly rise back up to warrior two. Straighten your front leg. Hinge at your hips. And bring your left hand down to your shin, mat, or block. Extend your right arm overhead. Gaze up towards your right fingers. Stack your shoulders. Twist open. We're here for 3 more deep breaths. Start to bend into your left knee. Ground down through your feet and slowly rise back up. Come into warrior two. Windmill your hands back down to frame your front foot. Spin off your back heel. Step back to down dog. Raise your right leg high in the air. Exhale, bring your right knee to your left elbow. Cross your body. And come back to three-legged dog. Bring your right knee to try to touch your nose. And extend it back up, come into three-legged dog. Bring your right knee to your right elbow. And extend it back up, come into three-legged dog. Bring your right knee in and place your right foot on the outside edge of your right hand. We're gonna set up for lizard pose. So you have a couple options here. If you have a block, you might wanna use it. You can lower your left knee down to the mat, untuck your toes if you'd like. You can also stay up, option to do either of those. You also have the option to keep your hands down on the mat and you're upright, or you can bring your elbows down to the mat and stay here. You also have the option to bring your elbows down to a block. We're gonna stay here for 5 deep breaths. So go ahead and find the lizard pose that you would like to do today on this side. Your right knee can be hugging in towards your right shoulder, or you also have the option to roll your foot onto the right side and splay your right knee out towards the side. Settle in here. We're here for 2 more cycles of breath. If you brought your elbows down to the mat, bring your hands back down, rise up, tuck your left toes, bring your knee off the mat, and step back to down dog. Lift your left leg high in the air, bring your left knee to your right elbow. And push it back up to three-legged dog. Bring your left knee to your nose. And push it back up, come into three-legged dog. Bring your left knee to your left elbow. And push it back up, come into three-legged dog. Bring your left foot to the outside edge of your left fingers. Option to drop your right knee down, untuck your right toes, an option to bring your elbows down to the mat. Go ahead and set up for lizard pose. We're here for 3 more deep breaths. If you drop down to your elbows, come back up onto your hands, tuck your back toes, lift your knee off the mat, step back to down dog. Take a big deep breath in here and a big exhale. Lower your knees back down to the mat. You can go ahead and cross your shins, come into a seated position. Inhale, reach your arms overhead. Exhale, fold forward. Slowly start to walk your hands over to the right side of your mat. Feel the stretch in your left side body. And walk your hands back to center. Start to walk your hands towards the left side of your mat. Feel the stretch in your right side body. We're here for 3 cycles of breath. And come back to center. Slowly rise up. Come around, bring your soles of your feet to the mat. Ground down through your sit bones. You can bring your hands behind you, or you can also bring them to your thigh, the back of your hamstrings. We're going to come into boat pose. You can bring your shins parallel to the mat. You have the option to hold on behind your hamstrings, or you can also extend your arms out. Stay here for 3 more cycles of breath. And bring your feet back down to the mat. Sit up nice and tall. Bring your hands behind you, fingers pointing toward your toes. Feet should be hip distance apart, ankles underneath your knees. Slowly start to bring your hips off the mat, come into reverse tabletop. Maybe sink your head back. Lift up through your hips, tighten your glutes. Stay here for 2 more deep breaths. And lower your hips back down to the mat. You can walk your hands back up towards your hips. Set up for boat, second round. Go ahead and bring your shins parallel to the mat. Hands can be behind your hamstrings or out in front of you. We're here for 5 deep breaths. Things are about to get a little shaky here. Try to stay with me. And release. Bring your feet down to the mat. Walk your hands behind you. Fingers pointing towards your toes. Feet are hip distance apart. Ankles underneath your knees. Go ahead and lift your hips off the mat. Come into reverse tabletop. Maybe sink your head back. We're here for 3 more deep breaths. And slowly lower your hips down to the mat. Come up to a seated position. Slowly start to lower all the way down to the mat. Knees can be bent. Feet are on the mat. Extend your right leg high in the air. Point your toes out to the side. Open your hip and cross your right ankle over your left knee. You can stay here and maybe just bring your hand to your right knee, just applying a little pressure. Or you can lift your left foot off the mat and reach behind your left hamstring and come into a reclined figure 4. You also have the option to grab for your left shin, or you can also cradle your right leg if that's in your practice. We're here for 5 deep breaths. Release that. Place your right foot back down on the mat. Extend your left leg high in the air. Turn your toes out. Cross your left ankle over your right knee. You have the option to stay here. You might want to place your left hand on the left knee, or you have the option to lift your right foot off the mat, grab behind your right hamstring or shin, and come into reclined figure 4. We're here for 5 deep breaths. Go ahead and release both of your feet to the mat. Bring your knees, your ankles under your knees, your hip distance apart. Your hands can be down next to your hips, and ground down through the soles of your feet, and slowly lift your hips off the mat. Come into bridge pose. Tighten through your glutes and your core. Stay here for 5 deep breaths. And slowly lower down 1 vertebrae at a time, bringing your hips down to the mat last. You can go ahead and windshield wiper your knees from side to side, or stay here in stillness. And come back to center. Go ahead and bring your hands back down to your hips, laying on the mat. We're going to set up for a second bridge here. You have the option to do exactly as we did, or you can also take a restorative bridge. If you have a block, you can place it under your sacrum, or you can also take wheel. Go ahead and set up for what you would like to do. Ground down through the soles of your feet. Slowly lift your hips off the mat. Come into bridge. You also have the option to interlace your fingers and walk your shoulder blades together. Stay here for 5 deep breaths. If you clasp your hands, go ahead and release your hands, walk your shoulder blades out. Slowly lower down, one vertebrae at a time, bring your hips down last. You can go ahead and windshield wiper your knees from side to side if that feels good. And come back to stillness in the middle. Hug both knees into your chest. Extend both feet towards the ceiling. Go ahead and separate your feet out wide. Stay here. You can place your hands on the inside of your thighs, or if you'd like a little support, you can bring your elbows down and bring your hands to the outside edge of your thighs like they are supporting your legs. So if you'd like a deeper stretch, bring your hands to the inside of your thighs. If you'd like more of a supportive stretch, you can bring your hands to the outside. Stay here for 5 deep breaths. Bring your legs together. You can keep your feet extended overhead here and stay in, legs up the wall, or you can go ahead and go into shoulder stand or plow if that's in your practice, or take another inversion if you'd like here. I'll give you a moment to set up for whatever you'd like to do, or if you're at a wall, you can go ahead and rest your legs against the wall if you'd like. We're gonna stay here for a minute, starting now. Feel the weight of gravity working against your legs. We have about 15 more seconds. And go ahead and come out of whatever inversion you decided to take and hug both knees into your chest. You can rock side to side if you'd like. Hug your right knee in, extend your left leg out long. Keep your left hand on the outside edge of your right knee. Extend your right arm out to a T and drop your right knee over towards the left side of your mat. Gaze over your right shoulder. Come into supine twist. Slowly bring your knee back to center. Give it one more nice hug in. And then extend your right leg out long. Hug your left knee in towards your chest. Give it a nice hug in. Keep your right hand on your knee. Extend your left hand out to a T. Drop your left knee over towards the right side of your mat. Gaze over your left shoulder. Come into supine twist. Your left shoulder should be ground down on the mat. If it's not, just can back off the stretch a little bit. Bring your knee closer to center. Soften in. And slowly come back up to center. Hug your left knee in. And extend your left leg out long. Extend both arms overhead. Maybe point your toes, extend out, come into morning stretch. Stretch out nice and tall, nice and long. And then hug both knees into your chest. Maybe circle your knees in one direction, the other, or you can make hip circles. And come back to stillness. You can stay here or grab the outside edges of your feet and come into happy baby. Maybe rock side to side here if that feels good, or you can stay in stillness. And hug both knees into your chest. At this time, if there's anything you need to do to complete your practice today, I invite you to do so. And if not, go ahead and set yourself up for relaxation. We're going to come into Shavasana. Maybe grab a blanket or bolster. You can take whatever pose you'd like. You can lay out nice and long. Bring your feet to the edges of your mat. Flip your palms. If you'd like, you can place your legs up a wall. Maybe take Shavasana on your side. Totally up to you. We'll be here for about 6 minutes. So settle in. Scan your body. Take notice of your breath. Has it changed? Take notice if anything has shifted in your body, if anything feels different as far as tightness. Just take a moment to notice how you're settling in, how the ground is against your body. Soften in, sink in. Relax your eyes, relax your forehead, relax your mouth, your jaw, your tongue. Relax your neck, your shoulders. Relax your triceps. Relax your wrists and your hands. Relax your hips, your glutes. Relax your thighs, your knees. Relax your calves and your ankles. Relax through your feet. Totally let go. slowly start to deepen your breath. You can start to wiggle your fingers and your toes. You could extend your arms overhead. Take a morning stretch. Or hug your knees into your chest. When you're ready, roll over to your right side. Take a pause here. Maybe take one more deep breath. And then come up to a seated position. You can close your eyes and bring your hands to heart center. Just take a moment to thank yourself for being present, being with what is in your yoga practice, for showing up on your mat, for being in the moment. I want to thank all of you for showing up and practicing with me. The light in me sees and honors the light in all of you. Namaste.